Previously on Insight's Frontier.
And all things being equal, experience wins. You can have the best product, you can have the best service, but if the experience isn't where the customer feels excited to come back again, they're going to vote with their wallet and go somewhere else. There's a big difference with meeting people where they are versus having people meet you where you are. As a leader, your job is to not only set where we're going and why it's important, but you have to adjust to the people on the team to bring them along.
Now, your last role, you were VP of Operations, massive team, massive business you were leading. How do you bridge the gap between, leadership and the rest of the team during disruption when things are changing very quickly and you're navigating, different layers of feedback, insights, comms? How do you bridge that gap?
Yeah. I built a team. That team started with just me, and then it went to 2 and 3 and 4, and then ultimately over 200 people. Wow. And so even part of your question, 200 directs, whereas, the extended team was over 2,500. So it's even larger than that. And man, so I'll just set the stage of disruption and a consolidation and creating new teams and new capabilities that didn't exist before. A lot of people didn't quite understand it. There's a lot of resistance to some people who were on board, but didn't have the skill set. And not only the team, but a lot of stakeholders I had to really educate not only about the transformation, but about contact centers, because a lot of people didn't understand it and didn't understand the full value of the significance and the loyalty to our customers and the value that they truly bring. And then also helping our technology team understand the technology that we really needed, and how do we become very solution oriented and not a house of tools. Mm-hmm. So very complex. It required me to be extremely dynamic. It challenged and it stretched me in ways, and I think it was one of the roles that really helped me to tap in even more on the empathy and the people side, and realize that we're dealing with people. This is a people business, and regardless of what systems or processes we're dealing with, and we're dealing with a lot of emotional people, because they're dealing with emotional clients who have real problems. No one's going to call the contact center and say, "I've had a great day today. I just want to call you and say how you doing." They're calling with a real issue, and they're upset and they're frustrated, and that energy just transfers. And so whenever you're disrupting their world, and all they can see, you're changing the tools. I may not like it, but you're changing it, and I know how to use it. And now I have a new leader, and now I have a role that I used to do that you're pulling out a piece of it and creating a center of excellence. Now I like that part of the job you're taking away. I don't like this part I have to keep. And then we have leaders that says, wait a minute, you're going to consolidate my team. And now I may not have a job, and I got all of these brands that we now have to work together. We were competitors. And it's like, well, I don't like that brand and I don't like that team. And yeah, we're one overall company, but there's a lot of cultures and subcultures within and across. Yeah. And so, and going back to, I had to find an area to unite us, to show that we're more connected and we're more the same than different. Going back to the guiding principles, finding the parts of the plan that they really were on board with. And everyone wanted a new CCAS system, because we all agreed that one didn't work, that what we had. And so finding those areas that they agreed with in common, and building a mission and a mantra around that, and getting people to shift their energy around that, so we can really have good momentum, good wins. So when we have to deal with the tougher things, we already built a relationship. What I've also recognized, and don't underestimate the value. One of my bosses, she was big on going out and meeting the teams. And she's like, it's going to require a lot of travel. I understand the commitment on your part, but it's so important. And she was absolutely right. And a lot of times we're going out there, not a real meeting agenda. And I'm very focused on agenda, objectives. What are we getting out here? Like, why am I here? And she was like, well, just come on out. And I was like, okay, I'll just come on out. And you just get there, you meet the team. I'm always big on understanding what you're doing. And so I love to job shadow, because if I understand at the lowest component what they're doing, I have real good perspective on the decisions that we're making, how it impacts them. And so I would just go out and meet the teams, get to know them, understand their jobs, understand what they're doing, understand their pain points, doing more listening than anything, and getting them to know me. And it made all the difference in the world. So when we had those tough decisions, now we added back the human element in it. And now it's Lydia and a person that we have to talk through things, not that person is creating friction for me.
Mm,
There's a name to it. Because what I recognize, that whenever you don't humanize the person, it's easier to attack the person. But when you know someone and you recognize, hey, I like Lydia and I know her family and I know what she enjoys and we have a lot in common, the dehumanization gets reduced. So I spent a lot of time building relationship, getting to know people. And a lot of times you think, well, that's going to slow things down. Sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. And that's how I was able to kind of bring things together. And it doesn't end. You start that in the beginning, and just because you did in the beginning, you still got to nurture those relationships and build new relationships throughout the journey. And ultimately, that's how you gain alignment and agreement and deal with the things, the exceptions that you need to get a little deeper on and figure out where you have some wins. Deal with those things separately.
mm, great insights. Did you feel like you needed to wear different hats or be different when you were speaking to like leadership and then dealing with your teams?
I think that's a fantastic question because I think one of the things that we deal with a lot is imposter syndrome. And one of the things that I learned early on through a lot of lumps, is that I can only be me. And what I've learned is anytime I try to be someone else or try to act like my boss, it turned out terrible for me. And the biggest part of it, I was so disappointed in myself because I just didn't feel authentic and comfortable. So what I've learned is to be yourself. And some people are going to know different shades of you differently, but at the core, they know who I am. And when I am in the boardroom, you talk the language of the boardroom, but I'm still Lydia. When I'm dealing with the front line, you talk the language of the front line, but I'm still Lydia. So you learn how to translate, when you talk about the language, but at the core, I am who I am. And I think that's what fosters long relationships. And because it's a trust issue, right? Like when I met Lydia today, she was this, and this time she was that. But if
Mm,
Lydia is Lydia, and you have to really dial it up or down to translate the language so that your audience can understand, that's an effective communication strategy. That does not change me who I am authentically. And then I walk away feeling good about it. But I have walked that walk, and it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. It takes a lot to rebuild your confidence. And quite frankly, it takes a lot of courage to be bold about who you are, because if you're thinking they may not like it, well, you may not like it, but you respect me and you understand that what I value and what I deliver. We don't have to be best friends, but there's mutual respect.
absolutely. Now, just double clicking on what you just said. Like, I think it takes time for us to identify, ourselves, our strengths, our weaknesses, how we want to represent ourselves, how we want to show up at work, and things like that. And to your point, you want to be authentic through that process, right? You want to show like who you truly are, and not change from time to time. Um, but in being resilient and managing disruption and change, right?
Yeah.
Just being yourself kind of helps you like deal with like all the change around you. If like at the core your values are not changing, your
Yeah.
integrity is intact, your approach, your culture, all those things are not changing. But how do you then, what was your own path to defining those
Yeah.
pieces of you and your work
Yeah.
and culture that would never change?
Yeah.
How did you get there? What was the journey like for you?
Man, that's a lot to unpack there. It's a good question. And I don't think it's a one-time thing. I think it's a constant evolution. Kind of going back to the statement I said with transformation, it's the business and it's the people as well. And while you may be transforming people's lives, you're also transforming your own life. And I've had a number of different roles, and I've had to go through a transition and a transformation each time. And even now, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I'm going through a transition, transformation now. My daughter is now a young adult, and so I'm no longer just mom. I'm more advisor, kind of switching that hat on what does she need from me right now. And I've had to just really dig in, and really understand who I am, and what does Lydia look like now. I'll give you an example. When I left the military and transitioning out the military, there's a perception of the military of people being very rigid and very structured. And a lot of times in the corporate environments, they're like, well, I don't know that you'll fit in with this corporate dynamic, this corporate culture, because we're this, right? And so I went through that, having to code switch to translate what I did in the military to how does that look in a corporate environment, and to show why I have a lot of process and systems experiences. It's still people that I'm dealing with, and I'm not as rigid as the misconception may be. But the interesting thing is that has still been one of the things that I still get feedback on today. It's like, well, Lydia's pretty disciplined. They don't say the military anymore, but it's like she's pretty disciplined. That she can fit into the structure. And I had to get to the point where I own it. I am very disciplined. I am very structured. But all my life I've taken chaos and pulled it into a structure, and that is a strength. That is not a negative. And what I've come to realize, the people who don't have any structure or discipline, they're very intimidated by that. And it's more intimidated about how are they going to make the shift. So they cast that on me. And so I wore that for a while. And it's like, this is not a Lydia problem here. Like, I may not be the person that you need for this job, but I think that we do need some discipline and structure, and in order to satisfy what our clients need. Because if you're chaotic, customers aren't going to buy from you.
Sure.
They got enough that they're dealing with. They don't need business drama on top of that.
Yeah.
So I've had to really, in each role, I've had to recognize, Lydia, this is who you are, and not only that, that's who you enjoy being. And so you can show both sides to say, here's how I took this and really transformed it into something that's more systematic. And but I had to keep digging in the areas where you feel more insecure because it's seen as a negative, and realize that's my strength. And whenever I that discipline, then again, once again, I am unhappy with who I am. Then I'm spending months unwinding because there is no structure, and then the team is lost. They don't know what to do. And it's like, I have to walk to the rhythm of my own drum. I can't do it. I cannot operate in dysfunction and chaos. And understanding that's what it is, that's not where we end. And that is a strength for me. And I'm happy with that strength. It helps me to operate better. It helps me to be very, see the outcomes. I'm very goal oriented, and I like to win. And when you look at any athlete, you think about LeBron James, I can go down the list. They're very disciplined. They have a process. They have, and they win. So ultimately, I love to win, and that's something that helps me to be successful. But through it all, I had to really come back on the core tenets. Going back to your question, when I look at the whole team and the big challenge that I may have ahead of me, when I feel uneasy, is because am I looking at service before self, or am I putting my own personal needs first? Or is the team thinking about their personal needs first versus what the customer needs? Am I delivering in excellence, or have I relaxed my standards because someone else is uncomfortable with it? And then am I dealing with integrity first? Like, am I true to myself? Am I true to the mission? Am I true to what the customer needs and the outcome? And when I'm being true, when I'm hitting on all three of those pillars, I feel good about where I am, and I am confident that I'm going to get to the end. But when one of those things are disrupted, then I feel uncomfortable, and I have to really kind of take a step back and say, what did you relax in terms of your standard, and why are you feeling where you are, and how do you move forward?
Fantastic. Lots of gems in that last one. Now, just to kind of close this conversation out, you talked about discipline and building systems, How have you made your teams resilient through like change and disruption? What kind of, insight can you share around shaping the team and building that resilient DNA into your teams?
Yeah. I think the most important thing of a team is having a diverse team with
Mm.
diversity of thought, with diversity of perspective, diversity of background. One of the probably one of the most rewarding jobs that I had was to build an inside sales team. I never thought I was a sales leader. I'm like, sales is not really my thing. And my boss, she's like, that's who you are. I'm like, okay. And I took the challenge and I built a sales team. I had 6 people. And then ultimately we turned out to a team of over 100 sales agents. And that team was mixed in terms of ethnicity and diversity and background, mixed skills from different parts of the world. Just it was extremely diverse, and we went from a sales team where people did not recognize, was extremely undervalued, didn't believe in, and we had I tend to get the team of people that no one wants, and it's like, oh well, I'm gonna keep 5. I give Lydia these key people, and they're like, yeah, they're we don't want them, and they get a sense of mission, they get a sense of purpose, they understand why we're here, and they understand their goals and how they can win, and we killed it. We were not only just number one as a team, we're number one across all of sales. And
Wow.
we were invited to the sales conference, whereas they were never invited before. We won awards. I mean, we cleaned up. And we had a lot of fun. So one of the other things that I love to infuse is fun. We
Mm.
are silly at times. We laugh at ourselves. We build great relationships. We pick at each other. A little bit of a home dynamic. You know, you and your siblings, you always kind of pick at each other in
Yeah.
love. We do that. And that allows people to bring out who they truly are,
Mm.
and we have fun. We work hard, we play hard, but a lot of it is bringing a diverse team because they're going to help me with the blocks that I have. There are a lot of, I am an African American female. I am of Caribbean British descent. I was raised in Houston. I moved to the military. I have a number of corporate experiences. I'm always the only female in the room. I went from logistics, from frontline, from coding, software engineer to the boardroom. And a lot of these areas, I have different perspective based on the different roles that I'm in. And I've always been in male dominated environments. So I come with a unique set of perspective and experiences and a viewpoint. I'm the last of 4. So there's always a competitive spirit in me because we always got to prove that we can do it too. And, I just have to keep up with my older brother. So, I mean, I have to win. But then you have other people with different perspectives and their things that they've been through, and they bring that to the table as they're solving problems. So once you throw a problem up there, you allow them to co-create. There isn't a thing that we can't solve. And I think that's an important part as a leader. Allow your team's voices to be heard. Allow them to have their fingerprints on the blueprint. Allow them to bring their unique perspectives. And you can be curious about their perspective and don't interrogate. And ultimately have fun with it. And I think that's how I've been able to build teams that we're not only coworkers or boss-employee relationships, but we have long-term friendships.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lydia. So much to unpack from this chat. I learned a ton. And I think this is not just useful for our audience, but also for me. Like I'm going to take back a lot of these insights and see how I elevate my work, my leadership skills, and have more impact on our journey. Thank you so much, Lydia, for coming.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you today, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
This video was brought to you by Insight 7, the AI platform that transforms customer conversations into performance improvements, helping managers and leaders coach their reps to deliver better customer experiences. Visit insight7.io to learn more today and subscribe to our channel for more leadership insights.